Okay, so this is the default view when you go into the portfolio manager, and it graphically shows the makeup of your US patent applications in this initial screen. And on the right, we have this 2x2 matrix. And on the y-axis, it's where you are in the prosecution of it, your number of rounds. And then on the x-axis, we have for each examiner for each of these cases, what their average is. So I'm gonna click on one of these and I'll kind of walk through it. So we'll say this particular case. Uh, okay, so I clicked on that one and it went and screened down to that particular one down below. But if you look at um, this one right here, we see that we're on our second round of argument. Or we had 2 rounds of argument, and the examiner, on average, for this particular case, was 1.5 rounds. So it took us a little bit longer than averages for this particular case to get through. I'll click on one of these pending cases. Right here, this right yellow dot. It's still pending. Yeah, I'm actually familiar with this case. I'm working on it right now. And with this particular one, we're on our first round of argument. The examiner averages 1.5 rounds to allowance. So that diagonal line that you see going across that 2x2, anything above it is taking longer than examiner average, and examiner average is different for each case. Things below are taking less. So you can see on this particular portfolio, generally this counsel has done better than average because you see these green dots, these allowed cases. Most of them are down below the diagonal. So that would indicate that we have good counsel. But sometimes, let me see if I can find a different portfolio that is let's go to see if this pulls up something. No, that didn't pull up a lot. And this one did pretty well. They abandoned a bunch of cases down below. Let's see. I don't have a big portfolio here. Let me see. Let's see if this pulls up a decent amount. Well, here it's more evenly distributed. There's some above, there's some below. All those are patented. Let me see if I can find a portfolio that. Okay, so here's a bigger portfolio. So when you look at this graph, you see there's an examiner. If I look at this dot up here, we're on our 7th round of argument. It took 7 rounds of argument to get the case allowed. And the examiner only averaged, looks like about 2.6 rounds. So it took far longer than would be normal, right? And especially if you see any pending cases that are above the diagonal, you can really focus in on those and see, like, all these ones right in here are above the diagonal, meaning you're going more than average. So you might click on one, which filters down to it down below, and then you can pull up the details on that particular case and see what's going on with it. And it may be that you simply are going after, a very aggressive set of claims. It may mean that, your innovation is not that unique. It could mean that your counsel is not that great. But here, this firm that I work at, the counsel has green across the board, so they're very good counsel. And it's a very easy examiner, right? So I would expect it to issue pretty quickly. And if it's going to take a long time, the predicted cost will change because we're taking into account how many rounds of argument. So if we go back here, for example, that predicted cost was 46,000. Let's go back to this case that took forever to go through. Click on it. Filter. Okay, so it's filtered down below. If I look at this particular case, it did get allowed, but it took a long time to get allowed. Here, counsel is so-so. They typically take more rounds than average, which we're seeing in this case, and it takes longer than average, which we're seeing in this case. So, and this examiner is relatively easy, 85% allowance rate, but it took 7 rounds, and the examiner averages 2.3 rounds. And then what's interesting is you go here to predicted cost, and you can see it's much higher because you're having to spend more time arguing it, right? So on that particular 2x2, what I like to look for is I like to look for still pending cases that are above the diagonal, and then just see what's going on with them, right? So very quickly, as you're managing a portfolio, you can identify those problematic cases, and sometimes they're problematic for whatever reason. It's not always the counsel's fault. Sometimes it's just a bad idea. Sometimes you're being very aggressive. It can be a lot of different things, right? So that's what's going on with that particular graph for the US applications. I don't know that I have much else to say. I will say that when you click on the right and turn on and off different types of patents, it also updates on the left and then updates down below. So really, all of these things that you can click on are filters that will filter down below. So here I just wanted to see the pending cases, and then I get to see down below the 6 pending cases that we have, right? You might want to look at the abandoned cases and see why they got abandoned. Like some of these 6 rounds of argument, maybe that's why it got abandoned. If you look at the abandoned cases, they're generally above that diagonal. So they were taking longer than normal, and maybe just someone made a decision to prune those because they were not getting very far, right? So these 2 figures up above are super powerful with regard to quickly determining what's going on with your particular portfolio. You can get a very good idea of what's going on, and then you can start punching into individual cases and see how they're going. Like this one that took 6 rounds before you abandon it, and the examiner's 1.5 rounds. That's a weird one because it was an easy examiner. So let's see what's going on here. Yeah, this counsel goes more than average on things. It was a relatively easy examiner. It could have been just that they were going very aggressive. It also could be that a follow-on case, a continuation was filed to go after the subject matter there. Hard to really know, but you can using this graph above, you can filter on broad categories like pending, patented, abandoned. You can also select individual cases and then down below very quickly punch into them, right? Like one thing that I'm surprised is if you look at this one, the examiner is super easy. Usually gets things allowed after 1 office action, and we abandon it after 1 office action. So it maybe that this examiner just got very lucky on this case and just found very good prior art, right? Yeah, if you look at the counsel's not good at all. But at any rate, that's what you can do with that chart, is once you load up your portfolio, you very quickly can start to identify where there might be problem areas by using that 2x2 matrix on the right, so long as you understand what it means. But certainly stuff in this upper left quadrant above the diagonal, that's where the interesting stuff is. That's where the things that you should really worry about exist. In the playground portfolio, we don't have much like that. but we have lots of pending cases. So anything that's above the diagonal might require some intention. So if I click on that particular case, it's just barely above the diagonal. I can punch into it and see what's going on there. I'm familiar with that case. The examiner is not particularly easy. So, just maybe the sort of thing that it's going to take a little bit of work. And if you can see, this examiner on average takes 6.5 years to allowance. So it's a very slow examiner for some reason. So it lets you level set, right? You can think of every prosecution as a competition, and your decision maker, the examiner, may be easy or may be tough, may be fast or slow. You want to assess how things are going with respect to who your decision maker is. If it's somebody that takes 6.5 years on average, like that particular case, it may be perfectly normal to be several years into it and not have an allowed case. Like, yeah, this was filed 5 years ago, but this person averages 6.5 years. So 5 years is a long time to be pending, but not for this examiner. You can pull up more information on that particular examiner too, to see, to get deeper insights into what's going on with them by going to the examiner analysis tool. Interesting. All right, that's about all I have to say about that.